live from Black Lodge in Memphis, Tennessee. In Frame, with special guest Sam Bahre, John Shaw, Brett Trail, Nathan Ross Murphy, and Charlie Metz. The Azbest Films crew with a special look at I Filmed Your Death. And your hosts, J. Lazarus Hawk and Jamie Hall. Hello, I'm J. Lazarus Hawk of Rising Fire Productions, and this is In Frame. This week I'm honored to have a guest return to the show, Mr. Sam Bahre of Azbest Films. Thank you for coming, Sam.
Good to see you, sir.
With him, John Shaw and Brett Trail. Now, the main reason you're here, of course, is I Filmed Your Death.
Mm-hmm.
We had you on March?
I think so, yeah. I'm pretty sure.
And at that time, you'd given us a teaser trailer, a little look at what you'd been working on. And I believe that we had several positive comments about what we had seen, Jamie, my partner, and I.
Certainly.
And I have to say the result of that show completely changed Jamie's approach to how he was making a film.
Yeah, I mean, you guys told me that afterwards, and it's just so, it's very flattering and gratifying to hear that.
I wanted to bring that up again because I wanted to once again thank you, because you really went above and beyond what a lot of people on a local, independent level would do for their film. And you pulled in Peter Tork, Michael Horse, Lloyd Kaufman, Merle Allen. And you not only managed to pull them in, but being on the inside, as it were, having seen a rough cut of your film now, I watched how you used them. And you really made genius use of those four actors.
Well, I appreciate that. Because that was very, like, I don't know, a lot of times with movies like Return to Sleepaway Camp, I guess, where, you know, Isaac Hayes is going to be in it, you're like, oh, I can't wait to see, like, what Isaac Hayes is like in this. Yeah, and then, like, halfway through he's just gone, and you're like, oh, I guess they had Isaac Hayes for a certain amount of time, and that's what happened. But,
you
like,
got a scene.
So, yeah, we were all pretty obsessed with the idea of really, we had each one of those people for only one day, and then Peter Tork for a little bit of reshoots. But we just tried to make sure that, like, you get your bang for your buck pretty much with those actors.
You really do, and the way it's salt and peppered throughout the story, so that every one of those actors feels like they are indeed, every one of those characters feels like they are indeed an integral part of the story that's being told on the screen. And that's not easy to do for a lot of people. Like you say, you know, Isaac Hayes, he was there for a day.
I hate that I pointed out that movie. I feel bad about that.
Well, it's an example. There are many more, and probably Isaac Hayes, poor man, has been victim of several of those. But they get him in there, they get their scene that has their big name, and that's why they were there. And they don't really play out in the rest of the story. And you really managed to do that, and in Peter Tork's case, you did it in such a way that it's almost peripheral, but he's still very integral in what unfolds. I just watched it, so character names and actors' names have crossed. I can't remember the lead character's name.
Pierce.
Pierce, played by Michael...
Yeah, Michael W. Bruce.
Okay. I'll probably get that screwed up a couple of times. And as I said, I saw a rough cut, so in the audio track I heard the director a couple times, so...
Oh, I'm keeping that in. I'm going for...
There's a point where it's like, wait, what was that character's name? Because I didn't realize I was hearing a director's voice, because the sound hadn't been 100% yet. But his character is kind of influenced by his grandfather, played by Peter Tork.
Yeah.
And around him, he has his little niche of friends that has been beside him, I guess, since high school.
Yeah, if not before, with some of them, yeah.
One of which is John Shaw's
Declan.
Declan.
The party animal.
Knowing you as John, makes it troublesome to remember Declan.
Yeah. Very original name.
It's an unusual name, and it does stick. I kind of like that character had a name that removed him from the expectation. Because I really enjoyed the character a lot, actually.
Thank you. You have a lot of twists and turns with your character.
There's a lot of just like, how did he get there with that character? Like,
How did we get there?
He goes from throwing laundry through his bedroom to this very odd moment, and I don't know the girl's name at all.
Kristen is the character.
Kristen.
Played by Sam Mainville.
Okay. That's a huge arc in a very small window, and it's a very quirky journey with a quirky character.
Quirky sounds appropriate.
That goes there. And then Brett, what was your character's name?
Jake Ridgway.
Jake, okay. You were the brother of the main character of the main character's film. Because we do have a film within this film.
Which everybody loves. No, I'm just kidding, people hate that.
Well, you know, a lot of times it's done extremely cliche or very unimaginative. And I think you've done it in a way that I certainly didn't expect it to be done. I was expecting we're going to see this moment and then there's going to be this thing around this film. And there was a weird parallel journey through the build-up to the character's production that was going on within the story that you were producing. And I really enjoyed the dual journey on that.
Oh, cool. It is, I mean, it's definitely like a pretty windy road for a movie where it does kind of go all over the place, but I think there is like a, central point to it pretty much. But I'm glad that you liked, I don't know, both of their characters' journeys, because I'm so happy with all the actors in it and just the performances they gave.
I didn't even know it was him.
Yeah.
I remember him in March from being here when he played the song predominantly. That was what I remembered specifically. And I saw the name and I was like, okay, I remember the name. I watched the movie and I was like, I thought Brett was in this.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Well, the difference.
Yeah, no, and that's what comes with like having a beard and changing your beard style.
Well,
and
as a director, or as a writer even, knowing someone that can do that or will do that is kind of a cool thing. And you have a face that really does change. Like Charlie, seeing clips of Charlie shaved. I've never seen him shaved.
Oh yeah, that was the exciting thing with like anyone that I asked to change their hair or do anything like that, they did. Like John grew his hair out for like several months. Yeah, this party died. No, for like
this is all me.
He grew up for several months just for something that is like 10 seconds in the movie. You see him with the long hair, and everyone was just committed to doing stuff like that because I don't know, they all just believed in the movie.
Well, I recognized Charlie immediately, even without the beard. It's just those eyes. But with him, the change was very drastic.
Oh yeah.
And maybe that's because I don't know him well, so I haven't seen him frequently enough. But as a director, as I was saying, it gives me the impression that this is someone you could put in a number of different types of roles.
and how?
Kind of like Christian Walker. You can put Christian Walker in a button-up shirt and put him in into an accounting office. Or you can put him in a leather jacket and put him out there in a biker bar.
That's totally true.
And he can make it work either way visually. So that's kudos to you on that, because I really did. I was in this Jake character. I assumed was somebody local from where you filmed, because I didn't at all recognize him. Much like I assume the character Kristen is played by someone from Connecticut.
And she is, yeah. It should be noted that it was Brett's idea to do that awesome mullet.
Yeah.
He talked me into it.
That's a brave thing to sport.
I've always wanted to rock a mullet, and like I never had an actual reason. I was just like, I think this character could have a mullet.
Does anyone ever have a reason to really rock a mullet?
I think this is the best reason you could ask for.
I think to really rock it is reason enough.
Brave on you. No, I do. I admire that level of commitment. I really do, because it's not common, especially at a level where you might have a day job still,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna rock a mullet. That's all well and good on set. Everybody's into the mullet. The mullet's what we need. You go to work. It's 2013 now. You go to work with a mullet, people are going to treat you a little different.
Oh yeah, no,
because
it was definitely like a commitment, but it was fun. It was like a fun movie set haircut, I guess. Like, cause I got to wear it around town, and that was kind of embarrassing sometimes. But other than that, it was just like I was in this movie world where everyone just knew me as the guy with the mullet for that time.
Well, it does, as you say, make the character.
Yeah.
It creates an identity for that character that you immediately know where he is. If you know what I mean. Amber Ridgely?
Albert.
Albert Ridgely was the brother. You start to understand the world Albert came from the minute you meet the brother and Charlie.
Yeah.
Because it's so... What's the word I'm looking for? There's a word for local color, which you'd find in dialogue or dialect used in novels. But you look at it and you immediately know what kind of world they're living in and where they're coming from. And to some degree, you can create an identity within that. And I think that lends a certain mystique to not only Jake and Charlie's character, but also to... I actually don't know the name of the actor that played Albert.
It's actually my brother, Alex Bahre. And today is his birthday, so happy birthday to Alex.
Happy birthday, Alex. Is he in Connecticut?
He's in Connecticut, yes.
Okay. That explains why he couldn't be here then.
But yeah, that's it's pretty funny because that role that he plays is just such a dark role. He's pretty much just like the ultimate kind of bad guy in the movie. And it really took... it took a lot for everybody, I think, to get to the places that I asked him to go to. But
I could see that. Knowing Charlie, I don't know him real well, but Charlie is the type of person, at least with me, the minute I met him, I loved him. There's just nothing bad I could ever say about Charlie, and I hope to have him on almost any set I ever have, just because he brings a certain energy with him. This was not a role I would have expected to see Charlie in, and I think he did a fantastic job, because I really did start to forget that was Charlie Metz. Yeah.
And for someone, I just feel like he's going to get... I feel like pretty much everybody in the movie is going to get a lot of work if they choose to pursue it based off the movie. Like, I think it just definitely shows all these different sides. There's all these really great actors that, you've just never heard of, and people just see it, and I don't know, it'll be a bunch of local actors who will just blow up a lot of people's minds.
I really liked, within the level of commitment that everyone was delivering, the character of Blake. The actor who played him was absolutely comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
There was never a moment where I ever felt like he didn't believe everything he was in. The world was solid and concrete to him, as near as I could tell, as far as his performance portrayed. And, in someone that doesn't have necessarily a ton of experience, that's kind of impressive.
And well, for him, that's my friend Tom Foreign, who I've been working with since, I think the first thing I put him in was when we were both about 15. And he did study acting in college. I think he might be the only person in the cast who did that. But I wrote that part for him like years ago for him to play, and it's just like, I don't know, it was so gratifying to actually have pretty much a sturdy mix of like people that I wrote parts for getting the part, and then people who just fit into it perfectly and you'd think I wrote it for. Because yeah, Tom is just Tom's incredible.
I really wished he was local here, because he impressed me with how easily he gave the performance he gave.
His friend character in the movie, Rompton, who played Chris, Rompton had never been in front of a camera before in his life. He'd never acted anyway at all, and he is like a complete...
Outstanding.
Yeah, he's like a 180 from what that character is.
I could tell he wasn't as strong, but, and possibly if they already had a chemistry off camera, the strength of the one might have helped the other be more comfortable. But that's impressive that he had never been in front of a camera. I would have said this was his, third, fourth time he'd given an attempt. But Tom, you said his name?
Yes, Tom.
Tom really impressed me with his just full-on conviction. I also was really impressed with John playing a quirky character. Whether you are in personality and in truth a quirky person is
Do I seem quirky to you?
not at all, sir. That's not really an easy thing to do on camera, because there's a certain level of consistency you have to bring to that.
Right.
And if you, in fact, I think if you are to a certain degree quirky by nature, like maybe Crispin Glover, who is excessively quirky by nature, I'm sure Matt could tell you stories. He's in danger of always being him when he plays a quirky character. You, if you are a quirky personality, could become in danger of playing you on camera. I don't know you well, but I've had several conversations with you over a couple of years, and of course, you used to be employed by my mother-in-law.
Yes.
So, you know, I know something about that. But the performance you gave was also very consistent to itself.
Thank you.
And that can't have been an easy character to really come up with.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was definitely hard to get in that headset some days more than others. But like, I would take certain past experiences, definitely certain clumsy things I've done, because I'm certainly clumsy at times, and kind of brought that to the character at times. But a lot of it was just like getting the awkwardness right at the right moment. And I was telling Sam the other day, like, there's the chip spilling scene, and the original draft had a lot more chip spilling than is in the final cut. But it was really hard to spill those chips in the right way at the right moment, and like just like the little things like that, the little falls, the little mishaps or whatever. That it was.
It's a really physical performance.
It was, and I'm not necessarily good at physical.
There is a
action,
lot
so.
of physical performance. I was going to say in reference to the chip comment, it was more for me the conversational moments.
Yeah.
With Kristen character, where it was really stand out for me, because there's a lot of physicality with very little motion. You don't have a lot of room to move.
Right.
A lot of it's medium
a lot of facial
shot
expressions.
and a lot of facial expression happening, but you still manage to have your body involved. And the manner, I mean, there's certain phrases, and I don't want to give anything away, so I'm trying to be vague while still being informative. But there are certain moments where your character will speak, and what you have to say, even Kristen recognizes, no, that really isn't how you say that.
Right.
Doing that with authenticity, without it sounding forced or feeling forced, is an art unto itself. And to be able to do that consistently through not just one take, but several scenes, because you have scenes with
Pretty much everyone.
The friend who drives the Chevy.
That's Nathan, who will be here in a little bit.
Okay. You have scenes with Kristen. You have scenes with Michael's character. All by themselves. Then you also have the group interaction moments. And for me, the group interaction is where we see more of the physical, the bigger physical moments, the chips spilling, the awkward motions and things like that. But those conversational moments, those had to be a really kind of a tough sell.
Oh, certainly. I mean, it was a performance, and I mean, I definitely, like I said, some days were harder to get it out naturally than others. But overall, like I had I went over when Sam was writing the character. I talked about it with him, and helped, like, gave him little ideas of things that I would be stronger at, and like just kind of worked with the character, and I just already had the mindset, because it was like a 2-year or more long thing where I was kind of preparing for the character, and I was just ready to roll, because I mean it was set and we had time to do it, and it was like we've been waiting all this time, and now I could finally let loose and play that performance, and it was definitely strenuous, and at the end of it I was glad. I wanted to break, and I was like, no acting for a while, because it really drained me, certainly, over the month, and about a month, I guess, of shooting.
Yeah.
But it was certainly worth it. Certainly worth it.
Interesting. And then, Brett, your character, verbally, dialogue-wise, you really had very little to have to memorize and deliver.
Yeah, a lot of it got cut. I did have a few mouthfuls, like
You had a few mouthfuls?
Yeah. This Rambler said it.
Well, the thing I was going to say is that because you don't have a lot of dialogue, honestly, I think the hardest thing to do on film is nothing. And you had to not do nothing, but convince us of where this character's mindset was in at least 2, possibly 3 scenes that I can think of. One where you're watching the video of your brother on television.
Yeah.
There's a reminiscence that's going on as well as a realization of some kind. When you are, again, and that would be the first time, I think, when you're in the cabin watching.
Mm.
When you're then watching them sitting on the couch next to John's character and Michael's character.
Yeah.
And that especially, I think, was a visual reaction that I thought stood out. And then for me, the big one, and it brings up a tech question I have, the scene where Charlie wants to teach you a lesson. And he takes you out and he leans you against the rock, and we see your perspective of whatever Charlie has given you and how he comes off while you're in that condition. It looked like a pastel effect of some kind.
It's actually our DP, Brian Prisbeck, who, I mean, we can't give him, like, enough credit. Yeah, he really did such an incredible job, obviously, just because he's, like, a professional. He's been in the business for 20 years. But he just has his hand in a whole bunch of different things, and one of the things he's been working on is a kind of automated rotoscoping process that he's been working on. And so he told me that there was a possibility we could use that in this, and I was like, well, there's the perfect scene for it. And so we just got to do that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just so many things just, like,
Now,
happened organically.
Came
Like,
together.
how difficult was it to produce that? I mean, it's what, a minute and a half of 2 minutes of footage, maybe?
It's a little bit more than that, and the process of, like, him doing it was, like, I think taxing to his computer, and it took a long time of rendering, and I don't know, but it was really worth it. I love the way that scene looks.
One of the first things I said when that came on was, wow, that is the first time I think a director's gotten it even close to right. Because there was a visual quality to it that really just looked like everything enhanced, which is far more authentic than There Goes Bugs Bunny Down the Street,
Yeah.
as far as most chemical substances would be considered.
Yeah, there's a lot of drug stuff in this movie in general, and I feel like they're pretty much, I don't know, every movie I see, I feel like drugs are just completely misrepresented with their actual effects on people. And not that I'm saying I've experimented with all these drugs that are in the movie, but it's just, you can read about it.
Well, I was going to say,
Figure it
like
out.
any good writer, because you did write this,
Mm-hmm.
you do your research.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to do your research on the street, you can do your research in a library.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, there's plenty of material, and if you really want to do street research, just go out and watch people.
Mm-hmm.
Enough of them are on one thing or another, or some combination, that you'll get enough information just that way. But I agree with you that it's either misrepresented or misinterpreted.
Mm-hmm.
The connotations are wrong, it's not a cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
There is still, you still know the world you're in.
Yeah.
Unless you're on something that's just, astronomical or on the verge of death, perhaps.
Which is kind of the case with his character, who gets drugged, basically. And
Well-
I think the visuals are right on, but he is, like, completely almost paralyzed by
Well,
it.
I liked it because, and I say pastel effect because on the D8 camera that Craig Brewer gave me, that was a setting.
Mm.
And it makes everything look like a line drawing for a cartoon or a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
But of course it didn't play well with color. Warm colors became intense and cool colors just sort of muted.
Yeah.
But what you ended up with was, it was full colored.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was the right color, but nothing was quite what it should be.
And that day we lucked out getting it that day too, because the sky, it's a lot of times it just looks purely white because it was really cloudy, but there's a few shots in there where you can really just see the texture of those clouds, and it's pretty amazing looking at that scene.
I was very impressed by that scene. I was also actually impressed by a short clip, and I assume Buddy, HG, the van.
Yeah, yep, that was him. That was Buddy.
I was very impressed at how smooth that transition happened.
Mm.
There's a moment where I recognize, because of course it's not real, but
Yeah.
there's a moment where I could kind of go, okay, it does have a subtle CG quality,
Mm.
but it's because as a filmmaker I'm looking for that.
Yeah.
But it just the motion on it, I have to give Buddy props for that one.
And really, I think he would still be working on it now if I wasn't like, all right, I think.
I'm actually not surprised, and I feel horrible because he's probably working away on something I asked him to do for free months ago, and I'm not even sure if that production's going to work out yet. I just haven't been able to get a hold of him.
He's
of course,
making a
he's
fake
been
porno page for us right now.
He was sick for a little while.
Yeah, he was.
So anyway, we have a few clips.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go ahead, and I don't know exactly what clips we have.
Okay.
Whatever you gave us is available. So if you want to set up one of the clips,
certainly. Well, this first clip just kind of shows the party, basically, and several different characters as they're coming there, and you just get a good kind of feel about most of the main characters.
Okay. Alright, that was a quick look at I Filmed Your Death. That was, as you said, the party scene.
When Kristen arrives.
Okay, where we're introduced to Kristen, and of course, at that point, I believe Declan is there.
It's his infamous chip spilling scene.
Yeah, Nathan's character is there for that, and then the lead character.
Yeah.
The lead actor, Michael, he's Connecticut, correct?
Yes, he is.
Okay. You're going to have a premiere, as the sign says behind you.
Well, it's actually, I can't say it's premiere because we we're submitting it to a bunch of different film festivals, so technically it's really a sneak peek.
So this is a sneak peek for a select audience. Okay.
But, I mean, and also the movie itself, this is what I would consider to be the director's cut, where after the showing, we're probably going to cut about 5 minutes out of it once we just kind of get, or more, once we get a reaction from the audience,
I was going to say, you're looking for some reaction and then potentially some feedback from a few people.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, the movie is still going to be the audio is going to be done, it's going to be color corrected and everything, but it's just going to be a little bit longer and it's not going to have the full score. Okay. But it's going to be Halloween night.
It's still going to have incredible music.
Oh yeah, I mean, the music that we got, like, it's, I don't know, obviously.
I was actually going to comment that it sounded like a lot of this music was very professionally produced. Mm-hmm. And that is not something that's very common certainly in the local cinema production.
Yeah, we went through just great pains kind of getting songs from just literally everywhere to try to get in there and just tracking down people who we'd randomly hear a song and be like, oh my god, we gotta talk to that guy.
Whoa.
Absolutely joining us.
What an organic intro, Charlie.
Probably the word opposite.
The wonderful Charlie Metz joining us now.
Hey,
welcome to the show, Charlie.
Do you like my cheek piercing?
I think it's great. Thank you.
So, you missed all the wonderful things I had to say about you, but you know how I am prone to doing that. Knowing you, not as well as I'd like, but as well as I do, for you to play a character like that, what was that like for you?
Oh geez.
I mean, in my experience with you, you have been an absolute gentleman, a pleasure to work with on productions, one of the more level-headed people I've come across, most of the time at least. I've not witnessed otherwise. And by and large, very good-natured.
Thank
the
you.
character you are playing, kind of none of those things.
Yeah, he's
And
he's
I
pretty
didn't know
crazy.
that you know, until Sam told me that you were in this, I didn't know you as an actor. I knew you only as crew. So I didn't know what to expect. I was very anxious to see what would Charlie Metz give me as an actor. And wow, I gotta hand it to you. You went somewhere I wouldn't have expected to see you go.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's a serious
Thank you.
performance. Yeah.
It really is. What did it take for you to go there?
Mostly what it did was that it took a lot of talking to Sam about it. It's you know, it takes a little bit of I don't feel prepared.
No, I have to
Take
talk.
your time.
You know, it was a lot of talking to Sam about it. You know, he knew the character up and down, and you know, we talked for a long time about it, and it's a lot of trying to relate, like trying to find a relation between yourself and the character that Sam was talking about, and I guess it's just a matter of, you know, searching, you know, I guess trying to find, you know, the darker parts, or at least trying to pull from problems that you've had in the past.
Understanding your own darker side to some degree.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Yeah.
like
I mean,
always
we all
on my
have it.
mind, consistently just, you know, throughout the set, like, I'd always hear you, you know, talking about how, oh yeah, I think, well, Buddy would do this or this and this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you were definitely always forming it, like, and you really nailed it every time that camera was on you.
You did.
Like, stressed,
Yeah,
like,
nailed
you
it.
she stressed about it a lot. Like stress levels are high, but you nailed it every time.
I mean, you
Yeah.
really did. You nailed it. Like, your performance is definitely one of the strongest ones in the movie, and I loved your preparation for the character in every way. But I do think raping me in the bathroom was a tad too far and not necessary.
Yeah, sometimes
I don't
Charlie
know
got
if-
too in touch with his negative
I
side.
really did think that I before you arrived, I mentioned Tom's character, Blake. Did I get that right?
Yep.
All right. I think his character, his performance as a whole, you know, each actor had high points and low points for me, but as a whole arc of character, that actor really impressed me. I thought, you know, that I didn't expect certain things from him, and then I got certain things out of him, and every moment of it was fully believable. The next actor whose performance really just stayed there for me was yours. And again, not knowing you as an actor, that really surprised me, and that might be part of the reason it stood out so much, is that I didn't know you as an actor. And all of a sudden, here's a character who has convinced me he is everything I know the man I know is not. And, you know, never in my life would I expect any moment to be scared of Charlie Metz. Because I wouldn't think it within your nature to want to. But
I'm the
that
puppet master.
character definitely had moments where I'm really glad I don't know that character. I'm glad that character is not someone in my hometown.
Yeah. He's pretty terrible.
He's a very dark individual.
Yeah, Buddy's a tough guy to have in your Christmas card list.
Yeah.
Was it, after performances, was it hard to come away from it?
I would say that the difficult thing is that you spend a lot of time with the character, and like I was saying, I hope I figure a character out through discussion and everything, and you spend a lot of time thinking about the character and stuff, and there's a time when you finish it, you actually, I don't remember your question. I'm sorry.
What? Sorry.
You had to listen
you
to a
think-
lot of Rush music to come
You
down.
think of things like Heath Ledger's performance of the Joker.
Mm. Actually, Charlie's performance reminds me of that a
It
lot.
does, it really
Actually,
does.
why I bring it up, there were elements that did. And we all think, well, the one of the worst things that happened to Heath Ledger, of course, was he just never really came back. He just went way too far into something, and he wasn't strong enough to get back out, and it cost him dearly in the end.
Yeah, Charlie's really having a hard time letting him go. He's like slapping me in the face all the time.
And that's what I'm getting at. When after a performance, did you feel that disconnect? Was it easy to come back and just back to Charlie, or were there moments where after a set break, you driving down the road or something and something stupid happens and you find that you're closer to Buddy's disposition than Charlie's disposition still?
Well,
Please say yes.
Have you killed anyone since the movie?
no. I find it difficult to watch the movie, to be honest, because I don't. But that's kind of like a lot of things that I'm in, because you do have to pull from certain aspects of yourself and from certain problems that you've had in the past with other people and other issues and not really in situations, and I find it difficult to watch the movie because I can't really I don't want to see myself as that person.
That actually answers the question I was leading to.
Okay.
And it's because of things like that. And may I say, it's nice to hear an actor, especially a local actor, recognize the importance of being willing to go to these places within self. Because you do, to really create a strong character, and I'm sure as a writer and a director, this is something you ask for in someone when you cast them, is that ability to invest and understand on a deep psychological level who this character is and where they're coming from, because that's going to play out in every scene, and it's important that you be consistent. And I don't even know what words to use, Charlie, but I really do think that you did a fantastic job, and my hat's off to you. I'd be honored to work with you on either side of my camera now.
Thank you.
And I think that's the thing about this cast is a lot of these characters are kind of that you could see them as the generic character. Like John could be like the generic kind of dork character in a movie, but each one of them just completely latched on and got inside the head of those characters. Like Tom's not the regular stoner character in a movie, and I don't know. They all just kind of really committed. And
none
really
of them
drew
were.
up.
I was going to mention that because it would have been easy for every one of them to just be the cliche or the stereotype of the type. And, for Declan, John could have done a lot of things, but he didn't do a lot of things. He did certain things with frequency. And that is far more authentic. And ultimately that's what you're looking for in any performance, is the authenticity, because the audience who's looking at that screen, you don't want them blinking and walking away. So that authenticity has to carry over. And not overplaying your hand, not doing every little quirk that you can think of, is one way in which that character becomes more authentic and less of a camp character.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think one of the strengths of the movie is definitely, like you said earlier, how the cast kind of came together, amateur or professional, whether they had experience, whether they were like Rompton, who was his first time on set. Everyone just like took all of their character, made it their own. Everyone just like clicked. Anyone who had to have scenes together worked. Anyone who like had to have like an on-screen chemistry, like everyone just worked perfectly together, and everyone just kind of fell into place. Everyone we didn't get that we wanted to, like it worked out that we got someone better for the part. And I mean, so there was such a metamorphosis of the movie as far as the casting and everything about it. Like being in the behind the scenes, watching Sam like put it all together. It's just so crazy how it couldn't have come out any more perfectly. Even like getting Brian to shoot the movie, that wasn't like at the beginning stages, and it just everything came together to make it like so perfect.
Well, I know, again, inspired by you, Jamie picked up that phone and he started making all kinds of calls to all kinds of people, and all of a sudden we went back and looked at our side of it and went, if we can attract that attention, we need to go back to the drawing board with the script and strengthen it. So we've done that. Then we moved forward on a couple of other things, and then we went back to the script and said, you know what? Now we really need a stronger script. So we're actually rewriting a little bit again. to get the script to be the strongest script we can have, because of things like you say. You go into it with a plan, and then all of a sudden, oh, this person's coming in. How fortuitous for us. Oh, and then that's coming too. So all these little things are slowly falling into place that are creating a metamorphosis in our own pre-production work that are changing the goals of the film on the long end of it.
Yeah, I really think this movie's gonna inspire a lot of people to just get out and like make movies that are just better than anyone can expect an independent or local movie to look. Because like for what we did, like the people we got in it, the young talent that we got in it was like almost more exciting than the names you know.
Hot talent.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're bringing in a fresh new young generation of actors. And the movie looks beautiful, and it's like it's shot for a reasonable price. Like I think Azbest Films is gonna like lead the way to show that like you can make a movie and you can make it beautiful and you can make it fun. You can do whatever you want with it, and you can do it for a reasonable price. And like I think the time is now for independent and local art to really skyrocket. And,
I would agree with
Hollywood
that.
is like putting out garbage.
Well, it's last year's garbage again. It's
yeah,
not even original garbage now.
they think they ran out of stories, and there's no more stories to tell. Like,
well, it has a lot to do with the market, honestly. They're scared of any investment because when they create a property or when they buy a property, they're spending money. So let's go back to the catalog of crap that we own and make updated versions, sequels, remakes, etc., of the old crap we own already, because we'll save on the front end investment that way. So that's a lot of that. Not to defend it on any level, because it really is derivative and garbage. But I agree with everything you said, because we have, just in this city, we have a pretty large number of talented people capable of making good productions, all of whom deserve the opportunity to see a production through. And maybe they need the inspiration. We did, and I don't think we're the best thing out there by far, but I thought we were doing a pretty good job. We were already aware of lighting, we were already aware of sound, we were already trying to tell solid stories with solid characters, trying to work with consistent actors. We've been taking our steps over the years. But when you stepped into this show, you completely changed Jamie's approach, and that really changed our game. And it really did show us, why think limited? Shoot high.
Yeah.
If you hit it, you hit it. If you don't, you're going to hit somewhere higher than we were thinking to begin with. And because of that, we went from $120,000 budget with a lot of local people, and maybe we can attract someone with a sort of a name, to 3 or 4 already agreeing out-of-town talent, all of whom could bring us a little bit of recognition and some following of their own, none of whom I can mention right now, unfortunately.
But I mean, that's the reason why it happens, is because how we got someone like Michael Horst in the movies, because he just reads these low-budget movies that people are making now, where it's just not inventive, or he possibly, I'm not going to single him out particularly, but any actor that is just a good actor who's not getting their due time, I think, in front of the camera. There's so many people out there that love those actors and would want to see them be in a good movie.
And there are so many of those actors out there, because ultimately the successful actors aren't necessarily the best actors.
And you see them in everything,
they're the best
too.
looking actors, or they're something about them is the best quality. But, right down to a hair color. You look at television shows in the last 2 years, look at the number of new TV shows, especially in comedies, that have a redhead, or an Indian, or an Asian. Those 3 subcategories of people have all been kind of hot sells in the television market in the last 2 years. So a lot of those actors are getting work. Meanwhile, someone like a John Still, who's in his 60s, older, gruff, fine actor, but he's not going to get a lead role.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't fit that demographic of, the pretty face. No offense, John, I love you. But you see my point. there are a lot of good actors to find out there, and like you said, many of them have a fan base because of some experience they've done or another, and whether that's a cult film following, or like Michael Horse, predominantly people would know him from Twin Peaks, and that would be the crowd that would follow him to this film.
Yeah.
You find a few people like that, and you've created, before you've even shot, you've already created a potential market, which, from a business perspective, and I don't know if you necessarily thought of this as a business perspective at the time. I bet you're starting to now if you weren't.
No, I mean, that definitely was one of the main things, is to make a movie that will inherently have people wanting to see it, just by virtue of the fact that who's in it.
I commend you for even considering the business aspect ahead of time, because one of the things, especially in this town, that many of us, and I was guilty of this until not so long ago, we fail to remember that it is a business. And, we all want to make our art, but we're all poor. We're all working day jobs. Everybody we're hiring, like we're paying them. Everybody we're putting in our films that's helping us make these films have day jobs. So we got to work around all of that. And it gets very, very complex. So to put together a feature-length film, to consider bringing in outside talent, to consider that kind of money, even if it's not a lot, you have to convince that the people that are going to give you that money, that there are going to be eyes on that screen. And Michael Horse will put some butts in some seats. Peter Tork will put some butts in some seats. And then people like Charlie Metz, people like Tom, people like John, people like Brett will have an opportunity, because of those audiences, to begin their own, as it were, career, like you said, because I think every one of them did give a good enough performance that they could get other work. As a director, I'd work with any one of them.
Yeah.
Including the ones from Connecticut. And personal taste, and I think some of it was character design, because he's meant to be a certain quirk type. Your lead character, I think he was the least strength-wise of your actors' performances, and it might be because he had so much more to carry as well.
And I think, like you said, I think it's character design as well, where he is
because he's consistent. So I can't fault the actor, I can't fault the character, I can't fault the writing, and I can't fault the character design, because he is consistent. And he didn't bother me, annoy me, or do a bad job. I just think he's better in the scenes with others, because the others strengthen him, much like I think probably Tom did for
Rompton.
Thank you. By no means was he bad. I just think the others kind of stood out. Some of it being like with John, choosing his quirkiness properly. With Brett having to be able to deliver a character with very little actual dialogue to build to an audience's relation to.
It was a physical performance, much like Buster Keaton.
And then there's just no words for the performance. I loved Charlie's character. Do we have a clip with Charlie in it?
I don't think we do, because I feel all the ones with Charlie, I mean, most of the Charlie and Brett scenes are pretty like spoilery.
I was going to say they kind of give away more than I would want to by saying much.
The next scene is a really strong Tom one though. It's their big salvia drug trip scene around my hometown.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, that's another look at I Filmed Your Death. That, of course, not the introduction scene, but for us now, the introduction of Greg. Was the character?
In the scene it was Tom and Rompton.
Oh, that's the Tom and Rompton. I'm sorry, I thought you set up a different scene for me.
Oh no.
Okay, well that was my apologies. That was Tom as Blake and Rompton as
Chris. Doing their whole salvia drug trip scene.
And did that include HG's?
The van, yes it did.
Okay.
And it's also to G.G. Allen's music. We had
G.G. Allen.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm
G.G.
pretty sure
Allen.
Merle's playing on the song, playing bass, but yeah.
Okay.
G.G. Allen just like that guy right there.
And then, of course, joining us now, Nathan Ross Murphy, who played Greg.
Yeah.
Okay, I got that right.
Yeah.
So my first question for you, how cool was it to drive that car?
I wouldn't know. I didn't
Did you
drive
not?
it. No.
Movie magic.
I actually can't drive a stick, so his buddy drove it, so I just kind of got to stand by it, though.
You were
That
just
was-
cool by association with that car. That was a gorgeous automobile.
Yeah, my friend Drew built it himself, like from every single part of it, painted everything over the course, like
Who
5
I
or
was
6
based
years.
off of.
Yeah.
Wow. So, how did you get into I Filmed Your Death?
Sam and I actually were in film class together. And,
Here?
Okay. U of M. And I ended up coming into one of his short films. And after that, he just called me up and he was like, man, I got this movie, and he sent me the script, and I read it, and I was on board. Yeah. Short story.
So, what was it like? I mean, obviously, it was a certain amount of, would you say about a month that you were up there?
We were up there for about a month and a half.
Month and a half?
2 months for me.
2 months.
It's just
2
been a
months.
month for you,
That's
right?
like serving time.
Yeah. Well, it was great actually. After we wrapped production, I stayed up there like 2.5 more weeks and just like wrote on a movie I'm working on and just like kind of sunk in the environment and just it was great. It was like a great environment to be up there after that movie. And it was
Nice.
great. Like Nathan and all these guys on set like all the time just like hanging out and like after we wrapped for the day we'd go out and either go to like Taco Tuesday at this local dive bar or like
Taco
just all these
Tuesday
crazy.
is what like kept or what made the chemistry like so magical. I think on
I think so,
set.
too.
People didn't
Like-
expect Taco Tuesday to be as awesome as
Yeah.
it was, but we got people each and every week more and more and increased to like this giant thing.
Yeah,
its own entity.
if you want like just magic on your set, your in between crew members, once a week do something really fun with them. Like for us, it was eating tacos and singing karaoke, and it was a blast.
Great
And,
karaoke.
we all just like were
So-
best friends.
Are you from Memphis first?
Yeah.
So what was it like heading up to Connecticut? What time of year?
The fall. It was the same time last year.
About a year ago,
Yeah.
September and October.
Nice.
No, it was great. It was good to see that trees are still a thing somewhere else.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a very different experience fall
Yeah.
there than here.
No, it was great. It was gorgeous.
Well, there is a fall there.
No, I loved it though. I didn't want to leave. That's for sure. Yeah.
And you were on set for a month. You said.
In the cabin.
Yeah.
The Cabin Boys.
The three of those guys all lived in a single room, like a 2 or 3 room cabin that was basically a single room cabin by the size of it.
Wow.
And on bunk beds, and he was on an air mattress in the corner.
I'm dead, by the way. That's.
We haven't even introduced
Yeah, we haven't said what our
costumes
Halloween
yet,
costumes
so-
are yet.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
These are costumes.
I am a cult leader. I became one making this movie, so.
All right. Well, go ahead and explain the costumes.
Well,
it's
I'm
Matt's fault, basically. It's
Yeah.
kind of a carryover from last night.
Yeah, the Black Lodge party
Black
last night.
party.
This is what we all were. I was
We just woke
Charlie
up.
Manson.
Charlie
We
Manson.
Mm.
Amanda Bynes. Amanda, please.
G.G. Allen.
This was my character's jacket.
Well,
Yeah.
Charlie,
Wow,
Charlie,
So
yeah.
you came in character.
Charlie
with
wins the
film
prize.
character.
Yeah, take up the glasses for a second.
Ah!
Here, try these on. See what.
Oh, for real? Okay.
Yeah.
You look like Zach Galifianakis now.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I can dig that.
His brother.
I wonder whose hair is longer, yours or this wig's?
Probably his.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So anyway, you've got the premiere, or excuse me, you've got the showing
Sneak
coming
preview,
up.
yeah.
Mm.
Sneak preview coming up on Halloween night, which of course is a very appropriate night.
Mhm.
Is there anyone in particular whose opinion you're seeking at that event?
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting because this will be the first big showing of it where a whole
Mhm.
bunch of people who haven't seen it and only have heard about it will see it. So it really will be. There'll probably be, I don't know, 10 or 15 or more people that I'm really kind of looking forward to seeing what they're going to think about it. And that'll probably be the way at most of the early screenings because there are just so many people who have seen this thing grow over the last couple of years, and maybe they've read the script, maybe they've seen some stuff here or there, but this, I mean, it is like a full force to be reckoned with, I think, once you actually see it.
Are you anxiously awaiting to hear what Mr. McCarthy might have to say?
I am definitely. Mike's one of the big ones for me, and
I kind of,
Matt as well. I'm
having essentially met you on Cigarette Girl. I mean, we'd run into each other here and there, but Cigarette Girl was the first time we really talked to each other.
mhm.
And of course, immediately I recognized this is someone I want to know because I believe this person will actually be doing something. And of course, you proved me right, so that's a good thing. But I know that Mike was one of the people that kind of steered you along the path you were already working towards.
Yeah, I mean,
And
before
that his opinion would be a key thing.
certainly, because before I worked with him, I was always sort of forcing my friends to make my movies and stuff up in Connecticut, but they were always my sets, and that's just how I ran a set, and that was the first like actual set I was ever on, and it was just the first real feeling of getting something done within a time frame and just like working like you're in the military or something like that to get it done.
For you guys, was it a really different experience than any other films you'd been on? Now, Charlie, I know as crew, you've been on some pretty production-oriented, scheduled things. But did you find that in any way being on this set was a very different experience than what you'd been involved in, especially with a short?
Yeah, I mean, really, like, I've only done, like, shorts, and I worked on one film set, like, a week prior to going up there, even just as a catering, actually, so I just kind of got to see a professional set, and getting up there and actually, like, just diving into it and really becoming part of it, like, this was incredible, and I knew it was, like, we were doing what essentially everything a set needs, but I feel like we were just so small and tight that we were working so much more efficiently. Even like that, like people were doing multiple jobs, which is like almost making you want to pull your hair out at times. But
Very much so.
Like everyone like just like gave everything they had, and just to make everything work perfectly, or as close to perfect as it could be.
Well, you certainly got a very nice product out of this. I was very pleased at how easy it was for me to make it to the end. It was not at any point tedious. It was not at any point one of those. And like I said, even with being a rough cut and having sound issues because it's a rough, I knew you as a filmmaker weren't trying to pass this off to your audience as the final film.
Yeah.
So any little, I can't hear that dialogue was more or less, okay, let me just try to figure out in context what the point was and move on because I know he'll fix that.
Yeah, when you see it on the big screen, the audio and everything is going to be
It really,
pristine.
just from a technical point of view, even, taking outside whether I liked or disliked anything about it, it was so refreshing to watch a production at this level, I'll keep saying that,
Mm.
where the people who made the film were obviously aware of what it took
Mm.
to actually make a production. You know, and it's always sound. Sound is number one, and then often lighting,
Mm.
and you know, worse than no lighting, bad lighting.
Yeah.
Which, one of those two things. But sound is always the first thing that people seem to just ignore.
Mm.
And your sound is very well done. And I understand you had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, like I kind of fell into the sound game like a few days in. That's how it went, right?
Yeah, it was about 3 or 4 days in. Before that, you were
Yeah.
just doing the clapper and
Yeah.
whatever else you could do around set, and then it
Yeah.
was just like
It became
Your
yeah,
boom.
yeah,
you
Like,
and Jackie.
yeah. It became that's what it was. I realized we needed our 1-person audio to become a 2-person audio team. So right from there we had just started getting it good.
Well, it's definitely like kudos to you because it's consistent.
Thank you.
And you know, that's really, really rare, honestly. I go back to, and I'm not trying to criticize anybody because I commend them for getting where they've gotten with it, but I go back to Daylight Phase. I
Mhm.
recently watched that, which is another local production. And they had to do a lot of ADR work for one reason or another. I don't know all the details. I think they lost files, is the story I heard. But
Mhm.
for whatever reason, they had to do some ADR, or a significant amount of ADR on that. And for me, you can always tell.
Yeah.
You just can. No matter how good it is, you can always tell there's something a little off.
Mm.
And your sound never has that. Your sound is very, very strong and very consistent. Until, of course,
Yeah.
those moments where you haven't corrected yet for your final cut, which, I mean, right down to it saying title card. Why would I complain that there are no credits when it says title card?
Mhm.
So I know you'll be fixing all of that. But I really do, I have to hand it to you because as a technical production, start to finish, top to bottom, it really looks like you did all your homework and that you and your team all did their jobs.
Mm.
And the product you have is going to be something that the audience, I think, will be impressed by. Now, will everybody like it?
No.
No, not everybody's going to like anything.
But this movie especially is pretty. I
But-
feel like it'll be very divisive, possibly.
It could be very divisive because there are certain, like I said, there's a lot about it taste-wise
Mm.
that I wouldn't normally go for.
Mm.
But I like how you skirted right up to all of those things I would dislike
Mm.
and then stopped and went to a different place with the rest of it.
Mm.
Because that's where it went from, instead of turning into camp, it started to become more of that David Lynch type of a world
Mm.
where it isn't campy, it's just everybody's really off in some way.
Mm.
And of course, as we start to unfold with these characters, with the possible exception of Greg,
Mm-hmm.
Greg actually seems like the one person who might have his shit together a little bit.
Yeah, he is. And
He's pretty chill.
He really
Just, like,
is
kinda
kind
sitting
of
back, you
okay
know,
with
with
it.
his car while everything crazy is happening.
mm.
Yeah.
He's surprisingly reserved with some of it. Although I do like how quickly he puts Pierce
Mm.
in check
Yeah.
when the time comes. He backs him into the room and says.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I like that we did get to see a different side of Greg, because other than that, he really is just kind of, it'll be all right. We'll be fine. I'm
Yeah.
moving out of town. So it was good to see that range because I don't think it limited you as an actor to do that, but I think it would have been an odd character in the long run if we never saw
Yeah.
a dip or a rise in him somehow.
Pretty much every character, like every single character has an arc definitely, and every single one has different points where you actually get to kind of know them. For some of them, like it is in the beginning when you first see them, and for other ones, like for both, both Declan and Greg, I think it's pretty far into the movie until you actually get to really know them, and they become more than just like what we might think they would be.
Well, there's a lot of the time where you kind of wonder, why do any of these people know each other,
Mm.
ultimately? And then I think it was John's character, Declan, where he says something about how Pierce wasn't always, or isn't now always the nicest to him.
Mm-hmm.
But he now at least feels part of the group.
Yeah.
And it was just in that moment where all of a sudden this little subtext comes together that they're the 4 kids from Stand By Me.
Mm-hmm.
They grew up together just doing all this dumb crap. And Declan was that 5th wheel
Mm-hmm.
that always followed them around, that, you know, they weren't nice to, but they were nicer than everyone else was to him, so that's where he went.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they didn't actually hit him, they just called him names, that type of thing. So that's where Declan felt more comfortable, and over time, that just he just kind of became a staple. And, you know, grew his hair and dyed it blue. So
And you can definitely see
Lit his dog
the
on fire.
you can definitely see the
Threw my
character
bong out a
history and
window.
chemistry between Greg and Blake. I think, especially when they have a couple scenes together, that those are just some of the strongest scenes for the Greg character. I think. Where
I
he's
was
just
going to
like,
say that, actually.
You can tell that those guys, even though they're miles apart from each other now and like their entire lifestyles and who they are, like they definitely have like a common
Well,
ground of growing
There's
up
an
together.
echo for
There's-
sure with them. Yeah.
There's the phone call that the two of you share.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the scene where Blake is actually commenting on, you know, I'm going to gotta kind of go. The two of you actually have a very natural chemistry
Mhm.
that speaks of, you were the two that were friends,
Mhm.
and everything else kind of came around that. You were sort of friends with Pierce. You kind of supported what he was doing, and he kind of clung to you for that.
Mm-hmm.
But you and Blake had the friendship. And that was kind of how that came across to me. In
Mhm.
that moment, it was like, okay, this is where everything spun out of. Was these two were the friends, and everyone else was kind of in that orbit at first.
Mm.
And we're just happening to see the story of Pierce.
Mm.
And that friendship has a peripheral to it.
See, I'm really happy that you've taken so much of the sort of personal histories out of these characters, because it's not like they're necessarily concrete in the movie, but I feel like the way that they're written and the way that everyone performs them, like they really do seem like real people, and like you can just
Very
you
much so.
pretty much can fill in the
And
gaps of what you think.
you know,
their history is.
the information I'm filling in the gap with may or may not be the information my own wife saw in it.
Mm.
She might have seen a different different subtext or backstory to them, but I'd be willing to bet there'd be a lot of similarities in what we came up with as a backstory because of the way they are portrayed.
Yeah.
And I really do think it speaks to Blake and Nathan's performances in those two scenes, even because one of them being a phone call,
Mhm.
where you're actually acting against a plastic box.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you actually had dialogue, you know, his performance.
He was
when you
actually
did it or
we
what.
actually got to shoot that on the same day, so they were both there together for those.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they were able to play off of it
Mhm.
at least. Okay, because I was going to say the timing. I mean, there's all little subtext and subtleties in vocal deliveries
Mhm.
that played off of each other very well. So I really do. I like the natural, and I'll go back to it, the authenticity that I really felt each of the performances had to
Mhm.
it. And then, of course, knowing. I'm fairly certain Charlie probably did something behind the camera during the shoot.
Yeah.
Just because I don't picture him not doing something behind camera.
Yeah, he was
Um,
assistant camera.
AC, I figured AC. And I know Brett was doing work behind camera. I know no one was sitting on their laurels when they weren't on set.
Mm.
I was the diva.
So you're always the diva. John.
I am. Legend passes around far and wide.
But knowing that everybody's doing those multiple tasks, wearing multiple hats, to still be able to come out and give the performances you were giving and be that consistent, I really think it speaks to the friendship, the camaraderie,
Mm.
the mutual desire, and, you know, above and beyond all else, the ability for each and every one of you to set aside your egos and let the production be top dog, because that is how it comes across.
Mm.
This film looks like, and I did like the film. I'll make sure that everybody understands that I actually did like it. But whether I like that film or don't like that film, that film comes across as a film made by people who cared about what they were doing. Truly cared about what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate seeing that in a piece of work.
I mean, there was 13 of us basically on set the whole time. 13 consistent people who were mainly there the whole time. And I mean, everyone who was there just took out that month or that month and a half, depending on how long they were there, from their lives completely. Like, people quit their jobs. People were just completely planted themselves up in Connecticut just for that purpose. And like, if it was something where we need a piece of like production design, we need a poster right here, you know, different people would collaborate and make a poster together and stuff. And so it really was, and it's bizarre too, because someone like Charlie I only met once before he came to Connecticut, and it was for about 5 minutes or less. And I don't know, everyone just completely gelled when they got there.
That's a big commitment to give to someone you don't know, Charlie.
Yeah.
He came up to me too, actually.
That's brave.
Well, I saw one of Sam's short films, one that Nathan is in, and I loved it a lot. I thought it was great, and I had already known Nathan. We had acted once before together, and I don't know, when I saw it, when I saw Sam's piece, it was in a wave of other stuff, and I don't know, there's something about. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of it.
Well, I don't know
Occupied.
that name anyway.
Oh,
Huh?
the Untitled Project.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was something to that which set it apart from everything else.
Something that spoke to you.
Mm-hmm. And you know, with the movie, I think it's hard to say something. You know, it's hard to say something with a movie because, you know, everything's got to fall into place in the story and how you make it to say something. Mm-hmm. So when it does, you know, there's a little bit of magic in it, I think, to be so cheesy.
No, I actually agree with that, and I thought I knew what this movie was saying at first. And then I reached the end of the film, and there's that end scene. And I started to think to myself, now wait a minute. What was this film actually saying? And is the first hour of what I saw, the first hour and 40 some odd minutes, saying the same thing that the last 5 minutes is saying?
And that's that. I want everyone to have to think about those things, because for me, I like a strong message, but I also like one that you have to put a little of your own personal time into decoding, I guess, because I think you could walk away from the movie with a bunch of different ideas.
I do not want to give anything away, but Pierce's character, near the end, he's dressed different, his hair is different, that scene.
Yeah.
The commentary that he gives. I found myself kind of laughing and kind of, oh, Sam.
I think I'm gonna be getting a lot of those from people who know me.
Well, it's genius, because everything he has to say is a very relevant point. And whether people want to believe it, accept it, or anything, potentially the points you are making could, if they haven't already, drastically change how cinema or how films are made, how they're looked at. Multiple days of viewing. Watch point to point where and when you want. Out of order, out of sequence, watch the things you want. All those things are potentially something that could change the way a film is perceived.
And I think at this time we really
and
are.
I think you actually do it within your own film. You one of your little title cards said something about auto-tuned version of
we see
the film. Blah,
we see
blah,
something
blah.
horrible happen,
and that's a very distinct possibility. My film, Morning Ritual, my first film, I was contacted through Aaron Hagee Freeman, excuse me. Years ago even. We were contacted by a band, I want to say in Iceland, that wanted permission to use that as their official video for one of their songs.
Sweet.
And this is, I believe they described themselves as black metal or death metal, which isn't particularly my favorite genre. But I don't necessarily care one way or the other. If you want to use it for an official video, go ahead and use it. I'm honored that someone finds it interesting enough to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And then about a year later, I was telling someone that had happened, and all of a sudden I realized, well, crap, there is potentially a huge number of people that will see my film for the first time, chopped down by several minutes, possibly, possibly taken out of order and out of context, possibly not even seeing the message that I put in it. What message will they get?
Mm-hmm.
And now I start to think, as the artist in me, how am I going to, that's not the message I'm making with that film. Somebody has taken my work and recreated it, because with the use of the internet, they have that access, they have that ability, and they have the ability to put it out there and potentially reach more people than I do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that second-hand art aspect kind of comes to play in the commentary that Pierce gives.
And I think that's something that, in a much smaller part, has been part of like film history since the beginning, with like other people distributing your movie and cutting it, or like seeing something, finding a video at a place like Black Lodge where it's in, like a different region DVD of it because it's some uncut version of it or something like that.
Well, both of us love David Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what David Lynch has to say about Dune.
Yeah.
It's the one film in his catalog that he did not have final cut on.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he has never liked that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, as far as Lynch films go, for me, and I'm a science fiction fanatic, I think it's probably his weakest.
Yeah, that's the only movie of his I don't really like.
It really kind of with me. It's the one film David Lynch doing religious sci-fi. I just don't think that was the right choice.
Yeah.
But not having that control, or having someone else that take that control. Go the worst of them, the propaganda films, where they were designed to do something, whether you wanted to create art or not. They wanted you to create this piece of propaganda. So it's a very relevant point that with the use of the internet, there's so many different ways that film can be perceived now. And I do think that it's important that as filmmakers, that's something we have to consider.
I think there's a lot of things that I think we're kind of at the crossroads of a lot of different things right now with film, in terms of just the availability and the affordability of so many different tools. Just the DSLR cameras you can get, which this was shot on DSLR camera.
What actually did you shoot on?
Was it a 7D?
It was a 7D.
7D?
But that's commercially available. You can get it off bestbuy.com. And there's so much more potential right now than there has been for at least 20 years. And it's kind of like in the late 60s and in the late 80s and early 90s, there was these two big kind of booms of independent film because of the technology and because of how everything was moving. And now when we have even bigger boom of technology and of availability because of the internet, it still hasn't really happened yet. And I think that's kind of interesting.
Well, I think that the boom started in probably the tail end of the 90s, when the digital cameras really became affordable to the common market. That's when Craig Brewer went out. He bought the Sony D8 camera. He shot Poor and Hungry. We shot Morning Ritual on it. He gave it to me. That's what I took out and did all of my, I'm going to teach myself how work with. Over the past, 95, let's say, over the past 10 years, a little bit more than 10 years, the technology has gone light years from that point. And the affordability has dropped. More people now can go out and grab a camera and make a film, put it on YouTube or whatever other site they might choose to. So I think what we see is just tons and tons and tons of horrible work. On camera mics, people thinking that that's how you do it, and that's just the beginning. Not to mention the number of jackass clones that are produced, because by and large, you give enough people a camera, you're going to end up with idiocy more than anything, more than art. Weeding through what's out there now is the tough part. And for the up and coming filmmaker, And, you know, I think this holds true whether you're behind the camera or in front of the camera to some degree now. Weeding through all of that in the digital world is really difficult.
Mm.
And it's very hard for us on the filmmaker side to create an audience, to advertise effectively, basically.
Yeah.
You know, because face it, you can't advertise effectively on Facebook. Who really looks at every little ad on the side?
Mm.
You know, the only time we ever see an ad is if we happen to be watching ABC, NBC, CBS, and we don't have the remote in our hand to you know, go past all of it.
Mm.
So we might see the commercial. But by and large, all of us are going to avoid the Coca-Cola commercial or you know, whatever other commercial might be on TV, unless it's the Super Bowl when they're better than what's on. But we don't really want to spend time with advertising. So who's going to look at it on Facebook? You can't guarantee that everybody's going to go to your website,
Mm.
azbestfilms.com.
Yeah.
Is ifilmedyourdeath.com also a legitimate?
Yeah, they both bring you to the same place.
Okay,
Brett's homemade porn website we have. Just kidding, that
excellent.
doesn't exist.
But you can't guarantee, no matter how many times we say azbestfilms.com, that everyone will go there.
Mm.
So how do we effectively attract an audience using the internet? That's still an issue.
Mm.
And that's going to come down to social networking, which more and more and more is starting to become a multiple full-time job.
Mm.
You're starting to need more than one person to do that.
Yeah.
Because there are your essential ones. And they need consistent monitoring. And, you know, if you do your searches right, you know what ones to go for. You don't just go out there and get on every possible site.
Mm.
There are ways of finding out what sites have the most traffic and how create a strategy on how to create a presence in those, and then have 1, 2, 3 individuals that's their job. That's
Mhm.
all they do, is keep your presence in these communities to open a network, open a network, open a network, so you get more and more potential to reach,
Mm.
whether that's when you ask for money or whether you release a product for them to view it. That's a very difficult thing to do when you're in the creative process of being the writer, the director, the actor, or whatever else it might be.
Mm.
It's a very daunting process as well.
Yeah, yes it is.
It's but one of many hats that, as we move forward, more of us are having to wear.
Mm.
You know, you pretty much don't exist if you don't exist on Facebook. You pretty much don't exist if you don't exist on LinkedIn. You pretty much don't exist if you don't exist on Twitter. I mean, there's all these little things you have to become aware of to establish your presence out there, to create that. And for actors, are you just an actor, or are you a writer, producer, director in your own right as well?
Yeah, pretty much all that. Yeah.
All of the above?
Hmm.
Okay, well, as an actor or as a filmmaker in your own right, you have to market yourself.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we've said it on the show hundreds of times. I say it to actors all the time. Even if you have an agent, you are still your own agent. Even if you have a manager, you are still your own manager. And if you're not, you're a fool. And you're looking to get ripped off. Because whether it's the music business or the film business, there's all these different ways of getting screwed. Led Zeppelin got screwed in the 70s by their management over financial stuff because they didn't know how to do it.
Hmm.
If you take the time to understand how to do it, and you take the time to do it for yourself, you don't rely on an agent or someone else to get you work. You go out and you try to get yourself work as well. You have an agent that'll do that in certain markets for you, but that doesn't mean you sit at your house waiting for the phone to ring. You may or may not get that call, but if you're out there looking for work, you're far more likely to get a job
Mm.
than just waiting on a phone call.
I mean, Charlie's kind of the perfect example with literally tracking me down after that movie showing, and like,
Yeah, I
Yes.
had to find you.
yeah, like getting your face and your name and stuff in my mind about just how to do that.
Well, even as stupid as it may or may not be, as much of an audience as we may or may not have now or who will watch it later.
Mm.
And I recommend finding the link and posting it on your site and, you know, doing what you can with it. But whether or not they're watching you, you took the time to contact me and say, hey, can I come back to this show? Because one person, 10 people, 100 people, no matter what it is, it's that many people you didn't have by sitting at home tonight. And that just shows that you are thinking, this is a marketing potential. This is a promotional opportunity. Why not take advantage of it? The worst it can do, kill 2 hours. That's the absolute worst it can do, hopefully. Hope none of you are bored beyond that. At best, who knows who's out there? Who knows who might tune into this in a week and say, oh, I heard they were on there. Who knows who might go to the theater, see the film, then come back to this and learn more about you than they did that night. So all these things are things we have to consider as we market ourselves moving forward in a digital age.
And that's definitely a big consideration for us because John, Brett, and myself, we all have a podcast together, and Nathan and Charlie both been on it. But that's just another aspect where we think, that's a whole different thing besides Friday Film to Death or whatever. It's just a completely crazy, ridiculous, funny podcast called the Dizzy Ramblers. But anything that someone finds us through, like if someone hears about us through that podcast and they're like, oh, these are those guys that make those ridiculous podcasts, and they made a movie, and it does build from there.
Exactly, and when you called me and said, hey, would you mind coming over, shooting a small little thing for me? You explained what the segment was, and honestly, it didn't matter what the segment was. I was coming over and doing it anyway. But I came over and did it because, A, absolute respect for you from the beginning. From watching your mannerisms on the set of Cigarette Girl to seeing how you handled yourselves when you were introduced to people and just moving through the crowds at Indie Memphis, to watching your ethic behind the work you do, to the effect you've had on my late arrival, Jamie Hall.
I was supposed to do that. I was going to jump in the scene and just start cussing everybody out.
But for all of these reasons and more, I was absolutely going to be there. But then also, by being a part of this film, you've opened up yourself to an audience. Who knows who and what that audience will become. I have an opportunity to be a part of something. It's just like when I did Cigarette Girl with Mike McCarthy. A lot of people did not know that I was in Poor and Hungry, in that little bitty scene in the front end. And I never made a real promotion about it because acting wasn't my pursuit. But I enjoy it, I don't mind doing it, and for the right thing, I'd gladly jump in.
Yeah.
So I did that for Mike, and all of a sudden people realized, hey, he'll act. And that opened up different avenues, and different people started contacting me about different work. And I was able to build an audience. So coming out and doing this for you, as ridiculous as it is, and as very much unlike me as people will probably think it is, it only took us, 25 minutes to film everything you needed, if that?
Yeah, at the most 25 minutes, definitely.
And, I had no problem doing anything you asked. I had a blast with it.
That was really fun.
I actually look forward to it. I think it'll be funny as hell. But who knows who's going to watch this film? My name is in your credits. Maybe they liked that silly scene. Who was that? Now there's another audience I've opened myself up to. Now, I wouldn't just do that with any person making a film. I have to know that if I'm going to put myself in front of their camera, I'll help Joe Schmo out of his garage make something. Because I want people to make things, and I want them to feel inspired, but I want them to grow as they do that.
Yeah.
I don't want them to stay consistently bad. But if I'm going to put myself in front of their camera, I want to know that they have already developed something. I've done it for Craig. I've done it for Mike McCarthy. And I've done it for a few other people because I thought they were developing something. But I try not to do it too much. And you were one of those people who was like, I need to. And actually I would love to again in something,
certainly.
in another capacity. I somehow see us doing something very 70s-esque for some reason, and I don't know why, but maybe it's the jumpsuit.
Porn.
Yeah.
70s porn.
This thing
Starring
just
Charlie
tears
Metz.
right off.
Starring Charlie Metz.
But
That would be awkward.
Charlie's pornographic enough just on camera.
But I did really, I enjoyed being a part of it, and I'm glad that it is something I've done, no matter how small, and I realize it's minuscule on screen time. But it really was more about the association for me. And I think that, you have a really, really good team of people.
I mean, yeah, there's no way that any of this would have happened without these guys you're looking at here and the other people who were involved in it, the other 8 people pretty much who were there the entire time. Like, I don't know. It really can't be overstated enough that, I mean, I could sit around and write as many scripts as I want that I think are really good, but without these guys right here, none of that would have happened. And it really is about finding a group of people like this.
Yeah, I really. I'm jealous because it is always a hard search to find the right people, whether that's finding a cinematographer, which took me several years, or finding a business partner who I felt had similar vision, which took several years. Finding people to put in front of my camera is a constant battle because I'm always looking for something different as well as trying to find something with consistency to it. James trying to throw me off over here. But you've really managed to put together a hell of a team of people. And as I said earlier, it really looks, the product I've seen, which isn't even yet the final product, it's already indicative of a team of people that truly believed in each other as much as the project itself, and were able to set aside the egos, and that is hugely important.
Yeah.
That said, I'd like to go ahead and take another cutaway to another scene. And Brett, I think we'll have you get set up, and we're going to actually have a performance from you, as I understand it. So set us up on a scene.
Yeah, this scene is a classic John Shaw scene, just like that bed business right there, of himself and Sam Mainville.
The delightful, the fantastic Sam Bahre.
Yeah, Okay, yeah. Then after that, it'll be a great sort of scare scene that is just kind of classic, like Halloween style.
Maybe my favorite scene in the movie.
That's high praise.
And we'll be right back after this.
The only thing that coming is a Halloween show. Azbest films here to get it right. 18, it'll be alright, 'cause October 30th is Devil's Night. Oh no! We're here to put on a show. Yeah, Saturday night. Ooh, the feeling's right. Just like a Halloween night. A little Halloween night. Oh yeah, Halloween night. Yeah, feeling alright. Azbest on a Halloween night.
All right, that was Mr. Brett Trail. I don't even know what to call that.
I called.
That was probably the best commercial ever.
Thank you, thank you.
If you
No,
like-
I got them all day long.
It really does. If you like that, he whips them up almost every podcast for the Disney Ramblers that we do. Like he does the theme song like every week, sometimes on the spot, just like an hour beforehand. You prepare something.
20
It's
minutes
just-
beforehand sometimes. He'll
Yeah.
be like, here's an idea, and he'll be like, well, here's an entire song.
I wrote this at 3 o'clock today.
Yeah, like
That-
in particular.
that was extremely clever.
No, Brett's the man when it comes to music. He can whip it up on the spot. Our Halloween episodes for the podcast we're doing, Brett does a song to open up each one, and they're just phenomenal. They're outstanding. They're as good as any song you would. Yeah.
Aw.
And those are Azbest as well?
Oh yeah, you
you can get them on azbestfilms.com, the Disney Ramblers section. We're doing, first week we did Freddy's Dead, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 6.
the scariest Elm Street
Oh,
there is.
yeah.
No, it's terrifying.
Then Friday
Freddy's-
Part 6.
Freddy's Dead. Was there any Curtis Mayfield in there?
Oh yeah, we got into that.
Did you?
Yeah,
Excellent.
like they played over all 3 death scenes.
No.
But then Part 6, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. And then Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. We did podcasts in each one of those, and ended it off with our
Spooktacular.
Yeah, it'll be a big
Halloween show.
spooktacular. For
Richard A. Lester, author of The Checkout, has been with us each and every week. Hilarious. He's one of the best guests that we have. Much better than this smuck right here.
It wasn't very nice.
Well,
It's an unkind Josh moment there.
one
I
of
love
many.
you, Charlie.
But
I
both
love
of
you, Charlie.
John's just being a diva. That's all.
Charlie and Nathan.
We did establish.
Yeah. Charlie and Nathan are both on several of our podcasts,
Mhm.
and I don't know, they're really fun, and we just kind of play crazy characters of ourselves, and just we'll say and do anything to try to get a laugh across, I guess.
Now, is Azbest Films proper, as it were?
Mhm.
The three of you?
It's all of us,
yeah.
and several other people as well who aren't here, who are up in Connecticut or in California right now.
Okay.
There's people kind of sprinkled across the country right now who are part of Azbest Films and part of this movie and part of like everything we do.
Okay. I did notice there were a significant number of names in the credits. That
Mhm.
it wasn't the same person's name in a ton of places,
Mm.
which is often the case. So I was just kind of curious who actually was Azbest, or if that's just a blanket name.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that it might be a weird time to talk about it now, but I feel like with the involvement that everyone here had with it, I'd definitely consider each one of them to be members, and all these guys are also producers on the movie as well.
I thought as much,
Mm.
and I know you're doing writing.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously you must write if you're putting
Yeah,
stuff out like that.
I got a couple things up my sleeve.
And Charlie, I don't know if you ever have time to write, just because, as far as I can tell, you're always working on somebody else's projects.
I try.
And you have said that you are doing. Now, did you say writer as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
He's got a short coming out that's just gonna be, I don't know, it's such a high quality movie.
It's a cool
Yeah, it's so good.
Short movie, definitely.
Yeah.
Space licorice.
It's gonna be good.
When's
It
that?
is good.
When are we expecting that?
It's been pieced together right now. Probably finish that up in about a week, and then we have a pretty big hill to climb with the sound design. It's such a big element to this thing, but it's looking really good. Pretty
Okay.
proud.
And this is an Azbest production as well.
Well, Sam
I mean,
came by and helped out.
I helped out, but I wouldn't think.
yeah.
we'd
Well,
consider that.
I'm
Charlie
thinking
helped.
if somebody's interested in finding information, would they go to azbestfilms.com or?
No,
Is there anywhere
I don't think it's. I don't know. It's
Although
not
actually-
on there yet. I
Mm,
mean, I would love to put it on the website and stuff. I'm sure we will.
No, actually, I think I can announce to you right now, Nathan, that we will have a page for that on the website if you want it, and that'll be within the next.
Well, there it
Few
is.
days,
But it does. It has
Yes.
a Facebook page as of now.
Mhm.
Okay.
It does have. That's the only place it is right now is Facebook,
Okay.
and
And that was Space
Yeah.
Licorice.
Space Licorice. Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty weird.
It's really clever.
It's awesome.
yeah.
It's awesome.
It was-
Sci-fi horror kind of psychological thriller.
Yeah, like
I'm interested.
Having
Yeah.
read the script, Nathan, I've read 2 scripts that Nathan sent me, and like a lot of people send me their work to just kind of read and like get an opinion of. And Nathan's both of his are phenomenal. Like he's a great
Thanks,
screenwriter. You bring a lot to the table that other people don't even could really touch. Very Stephen Kingish, very like I don't know.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Space Licorice is kind of like a John Carpenter film.
Interesting. Now I know David Lynch, of
Mhm.
course, is one of your big influences.
Mhm.
How about you, John? Who are one or two of your favorites?
Definitely Kevin Smith. Definitely
Yeah,
as a
same here.
filmmaker, it made me think about a lot of things and just the way of doing a production and whatnot. And I mean, people like Christopher Nolan. Definitely the current. I think everything he's done is great. Like even
Yeah, he
even
really
Spielberg.
hasn't
Even
had a
like
bad film. has
yeah,
he?
even like classic Spielberg. I always look at Sam as like kind of a young Spielberg type. Just the way that the things I read about young Spielberg that are very similar to a lot of the way Sam kind of runs productions and kind of like pictures things and envisions things in his heads and kind of explains things to people. So that's years ago how I knew that Sam had like kind of a natural magic to him just by the similarities to him and like people like Spielberg who blew up into phenomenal directors. And but yeah, like I could go on forever. There's so many directors and writers who I have aspired to kind of be in some way or another.
How about you?
Probably my favorite. What made me want to make movies probably would be Kevin Smith and Trauma. Like so, Clerks and just any Trauma movie like Terror Firmer or Toxic Avenger. Like those are probably 2 of the ones that just made me want to get into it. And a handful of other influences from anywhere from Bob Seger, like you kind of might have heard in that song, or to the Insane Clown Posse. Like I got a wide spectrum.
Nice. Okay. Now, Charlie, I've worked with you on a couple of things. We've had a lot of different conversations, but I don't know that I've ever actually asked you, film-wise, who do you really think stands out? Who do you look up to as a filmmaker and think that's the type of film I would produce?
Probably, he's a little bit newer, but I would say Nicholas Winding Refn, if that's how you pronounce his last name, is probably my favorite director right now. Valhalla Rising is probably, I don't know, it's really awesome. I would say Edgar Wright too. I'm a really big fan of Edgar Wright and Nicholas Winding Refn.
It's an odd combination.
Yeah.
Valhalla
I
Rising.
thought I met Edgar Wright and I introduced myself to him.
Oh, are you serious?
And it wasn't him. It was so embarrassing.
You
Oh,
might
it's
have to
awful.
help me remember which one's Valhalla Rising. Is that the one with the Vikings
Yes.
come to this land and end up
Going crazy.
They end up taking down the burial.
Mhm.
Well, not the burial, but the.
Yeah.
That was it's a long way from Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
That's a spectrum too.
Yeah. I just think Refn's movies are there's very little dialogue, and I like
there's a visceral quality. I actually did like Valhalla Rising. I know a lot of people had a problem with it on different levels. I think most of them were story oriented. But
Yeah.
There's a visual quality which was hypnotic with that thing.
That's the best way I could describe that movie, is that it's
And I saw
hypnotic in a
something
way.
else he did that I just can't remember what it was.
he did Drive and Bronson as well, and there's some other stuff before that I can't seem to remember
I
right
can't
now.
remember
Bronson's
exactly.
incredible.
Yeah, Bronson.
I know it's right over my shoulder somewhere, but
Pusher, perhaps. Pusher, yeah.
how about you, Nathan?
James Gunn, Zack Snyder, Steven Spielberg, about a million others.
Interesting.
But those are probably my top. There's
James
probably a lot more.
Gunn is one of those directors that kind of, I don't think about him until I realize I just saw something by him and wow.
Yeah, I love
Like
it.
I assume you're talking about
Mhm.
Scooby Doo.
Super, actually, is
Yeah,
the one that comes to
fantastic.
mind.
One of my
I sat down and watched Super, not expecting much,
Yeah.
because, Rainn Wilson's kind of a goofy, odd man, and it's got Juno in it, and, what's it? Did not expect that movie.
It's fun.
And I'm very curious as to what he's going to produce with what he's doing now, because I'm a huge comic book fan.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
And one of my favorite characters, if you call it a character, a group, I guess, I'm a little bit older than all of you probably put together. But
Yeah,
back
that's
in the early in the early 70s, one of my favorite things was the Guardians of the Galaxy, which of course have gone under a drastic change. Almost none of the characters I was familiar with or liked at the time are in the current
They
version.
didn't have Rocket Raccoon.
There was no Rocket Raccoon. And there was the only character that was in the Guardians of the Galaxy I grew up with, that's in this new movie is the one Yondu, played by
Michael Rooker.
Rooker. Thank you. Michael Rooker's character in this movie is the only one that's from the original group. So I'm very curious to see what he's going to turn this into, and then of course his sensibility being brought into what Marvel has already produced, because they are going to establish that it is one universe.
Right.
So the Rocket Raccoon and Groot.
I don't know how they're going to do that.
James
He's
Gunn's sensibility.
he's going to stay. He's going to
Interesting.
stay James Gunn.
Well, I was
know,
going to
so
say,
it's
I
going to be
think
interesting. You know,
when
to
you
see.
hire him, you get him. You
Yeah.
don't.
I think it's a surprising move that they did hire him for this.
Yeah,
project.
it's really cool
It
though. It's-
really
yeah.
surprised me. I think, as much as I know they're having some trouble in the negotiation side with some of the actors and actresses, monetarily, Marvel has been a little bit hard with money, which I understand on some levels. At the same time, the Avengers made how much money? But choosing Joss Whedon, choosing James Gunn.
And you're right as well for Ant-Man.
And I was going to go back over to Charlie's
I think
man,
that's right.
bringing in Edgar Wright for Ant-Man. That actually, James Gunn and Edgar Wright, I could almost see in a universe together.
For sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
But seeing either of them in what Joss Whedon has built and
That's
what
a
Marvel
stretch,
has built going into Avengers really is kind of an odd fit. It feels
Oh, yeah.
very much like the square peg going in the round hole kind of thing, and yet they're promising it will work. So I'll be interested to see what your two directors can do
Yeah.
in that world. It'll be very fun to see, I think.
One of the cool things about James Gunn to me, I think, is that he has, I don't know if you know, but he has a really strong tie to Troma. And
I
he's
didn't know.
He started out as a writer with he wrote Romeo and Juliet. He wrote one of Lloyd's books with him. You can see him in like all sorts of their movies. He just pops up for like a second. And to this day, he still like supports them completely. Where like Lloyd is in Slither and he's in I think he's in Super. And
Just say, I think he does show up in something, because I remember the first time you told me you had him in a film, I couldn't picture him. And then I saw the footage at your house. I was like, okay, that dude.
yeah.
And it occurred to me, I've actually seen this guy in something, and I don't watch a lot of Troma films. I haven't seen a lot since Toxic 2 was probably the last thing I'd seen. And that was new at the time. But I'd seen him in something.
Yeah.
So
He's
it
in. I think he's got
was.
like 500 credits on IMDb or something
he
like that.
does have a ridiculous number of credits. I looked him up after our conversation to try and figure out why I knew the name.
Unlike Peter Tork, who's in a movie, who hasn't been in a movie in almost 10 years, pretty much.
I would say he has like 3 credits, I think, and yours is one of
Yeah.
them. But I want to thank all of you for taking the time to come out. I hope that you will get a huge response with this film. I really think it's going to be a lot bigger than anyone would anticipate. I don't think people are expecting what you're about to give them.
I think that's true.
That's definitely true.
And not just content. I really do think that when they see the visual quality that, some young kid made, I think they're really going to realize you're not some young kid. You are a filmmaker, Sam, and a damn fine one, and you really have stepped up. And, this is your first feature. And I don't think I would have been able to do my first feature at your age and have it be half of what you achieved. And I really do hand it to you and commend you on a job very well done.
I really appreciate that. And like I said, I'm not just like placating the people who worked on it with me. It would not be possible at all without everybody here, without Brian Prisbeck, who shot it.
As both my partner Jamie and I would say or agree with you, there is no way that it doesn't happen with a team of people. And each and every one of you, man, I hand it to you for taking the time, the commitment, and the trust that it takes to put into one man's vision, and then the ability and willingness to set aside your own ego to see his vision to fruition. I really commend each and every one of you for putting that out there because it really does show on camera. And I think you have really got a hell of a production. And I look forward to seeing what people will say.
Yeah, same here.
and we'll have to have you back sometime in the future to talk about Space Licorice.
Hey, anytime. Yeah.
And to see where some scripts stand. And
Hey, if I might say one more thing,
Please
I
do.
really want to emphasize this Halloween night, 10 o'clock at Studio on the Square. Go see I Filmed Your Death for $5.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a really fun
Yeah,
night.
my band's gonna be
Brett,
playing.
it's
before
gonna
the-
be
before
opening
the
up your
show.
first real show, right?
Yeah. The Conspiracy Theory will play 3 songs before the movie.
Nice.
So it's gonna be real bang for your buck. $5 get you a local show, local movie, and yeah.
And just a
Top
movie, the
quality
kind of
stuff,
movie
too.
you've never seen before, too.
You will be entertained whether you like it or not.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to reiterate what Brett had to say. Having seen, and I will go again and say, I know what I saw was a rough cut. And I know that the little quirks will be improved and little things like that. And I already can't wait to sit in that theater because this is not the average local production. This is a film. This is a film made by an independent filmmaker, not somebody burdened by the local stigma that can come with such a thing. It's worth your $5. It's worth your time. Support Sam, John, Brett, Charlie, Nathan. They put their heart, they put their soul into this production, and it really is a hell of a production and well worth your time and your effort to see this. So please, Halloween night, 10 o'clock, Studio on the Square. Please come out and see I Filmed Your Death.
Azbestfilms.com. You can find us on Facebook. You can find the Disney Ramblers on Facebook. We're on Podomatic. We were number 65 in the TV film category yesterday. We've been as high as 3 on
yeah.
TV film out of
Nice.
thousands of podcasts. You can find us on Twitter, Disney Ramblers. Most of us are on Twitter.
Costume contest.
Azbest Films.
Costume contest?
Costume contest.
It's Halloween, right?
We could have one for that. We're gonna have a costume contest the night of I
Apparently,
Filmed Your Death.
apparently.
Whoever,
At the show?
whoever has the best costume at the I Filmed Your Death show, you're gonna get a special one-of-a-kind IFYD prize.
Nice.
Okay, sure. And it'll be a night with Nathan.
Diving right in.
It's going to be Charlie's bloodstained shirt.
It's gonna be a doll made out of both Charlie and Nathan's hair.
Out of the hair. Nice.
The Rambler Pumpkin will be there.
Alright.
You can hear the Rambler Pumpkin in his
We thank-
predictions.
Thank you for joining us. Azbest Films, go see their movie. Please support your local filmmakers. We'll see you next week.
Rock on.
Sweet. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Right,
It was
definitely.
great.
I love having you guys on because I know that's an easy show.
I mean, the 2 hours goes by really fast.
Well, yeah, we were talking
Really,
before,
really
like,
does.
with doing the podcast, being used to talk, 4 hours or whatever, this is just, nothing. We're just sitting around and doing what we normally do anyway.
Well, that's, when Charlie sat down and started to get a little bit nervous, I was like, don't worry about it, man, take your time. This is not an interview. This is just a hang out and converse and let people know who you are.